Well, welcome to the video where we are going to reassemble KP Morritt's Intrepid Regent, which is a small entry-level fishing reel. Reassembly of the ratchet assembly is fairly easy. This ratchet can be reversed if there's a lot of wear on it. There's another head on the other side, so if you want to do that, you can do that. So essentially it goes over the post, like so. This piece here, which is the finger control from the outside of the reel, that goes right down like that. The straight side of the spring goes underneath this black retaining cap here, which has been put there specifically for that purpose. So you can see like that. And then all you have to do is just push the side of the spring down like that, and that essentially, you can see when you pull the lever it flicks inwards to click on the non-reverse ratchet, and then you can move it out of the way for when you want to set the rod up. Okay, right, replacing the bail arm trigger. It has to be noted that this can only really be done when the bail arm is off. If you try and do it otherwise, you'll find it's quite difficult. So that goes on like so, and then the spring, this is the spring here, winds around this piece here. So you can see once you've wound the spring around, this is difficult to do to show on camera, but once you round the spring around this clip here and bring the end of it back around here, you should then be able to push that boss there underneath the spring, so that the spring makes it spring. So there's a picture of the boss behind the spring, and you can see that that's what it should look like underneath. Reassembly of the bail arm. Okay, so the bail arm contains this section here. You can just see this will unscrew, and there's a tungsten insert which you must not lose, because that stops the line from wearing away the reel. Okay, and you can replace that, I believe, if you can find spares for it these days. And that section will come in and completely off, so you can clean it if you need to do so. All you do is just unscrew this end piece. So to reassemble the bail arm on, you first need to insert the spring in the other side. So you see the spring here, there's a little divot on the end of the spring there, and you have to put the other end of the spring into this slot here. You also want to check the spring and just make sure that it's straight, otherwise it will get trapped when you screw it down, and your bail arm won't flick properly. Okay, so what I'm going to do is just demonstrate how to do this. So you can see the nub on the spring there, that goes into the little hole there, right? And then you screw down with the largest pillar screw. The other one is for the other side. When you do that, you should still find it's got a lot of slack on it. So then there's not enough there to get the bail arm springy, I'm afraid. So you have to spring it back around at least once. So this is done in this direction. Now it's important that you get the direction right, because if you don't, it won't work properly. Okay, so you should then be in a position where when you put this on here, that you've got a good bit of spring going on there. And remember the direction. The direction must go in the right direction, otherwise you will stretch the spring the wrong way and it won't work properly. Okay, and you need to make sure that this one here is on the right side of the pen. Okay, that's one of the trickiest bits of assembly on this reel. Once you've got that in, and you should find it tightens down without tightening onto this, you should then find that the reel has a good bit of snap. So you remember that you wind it round, but remember to wind it round in the right direction so that the spring coils up instead of out. Okay, once this mechanism is on, the boss is on the other side of the spring there, you then got a situation where that is meeting into that slot there, and it won't move unless you do that, by the way. So if you retract it with your fingernail, you can find the bail arm snaps back, and then you've got this, it sits there outside of the notch when you do that. So that's how it needs to look when it's complete. So that completes the assembly of the drum. Okay, to reassemble the reel, essentially you insert this onto here, and we've essentially got a zinc power cog, which in a more expensive reel would be made of brass. On this reel it's made of zinc because it's a lower price range reel, generally speaking. And then on top of here we have a brass nut, but first I'm going to grease it. Okay, the grease that I've used is pen reel grease. This is essentially aluminium packed grease, which is got aluminium particles in it. And it's especially designed for fishing reels, and it doesn't go hard the way that most do. What it looks like when it's done is this. You don't want vast amounts of grease on these reels. You want your reel to have a nice light action, so you want to have the cogs greased and then the sliding parts are oiled. So this particular reel doesn't really have a bearing, it just has this post here. So this is going to be oiled, it's a sliding part. Right, to assemble the two parts, one just slides into the other like so, and then there should be a good bit of oil in there, and then we then put, there's a brass nut that goes on here. This is a right hand thread and it has a cap on it, and the cap stops it being tightened too hard. So there's no, in this particular case there are no washers, it's just a capped nut. Okay, the measurement of this nut is very slightly more than 10 millimeters, and I would think that that's probably imperial. So if you make sure that the cap of the nut here comes right down on top of the axle post, and then you've got a good reassembly, and that completes the reassembly of the drum. Make sure it turns freely, which it should do. There shouldn't be any old hardened grease on there now, it should be nice and free. Okay, reassembly of the slider. So this is on a flatted shaft, so you put the cog back on, put a bit of oil, you can see the oil there, onto the slider itself. The slider goes into the central hole, which should be clean now if you've renovated the reel properly, and then you can put the half moon, it goes back on there like so, and that is then driven up and down by the cam on the cog. Okay, reassembly of the main cog. Main cog simply goes back in like so. I am going to put a little bit of reel oil onto it, just because it's a sliding part. So you generally don't grease this. You want your reel to run kind of light and fast, so you generally avoid putting grease onto sliding parts. You just put the grease onto the cogs. You can see where I've done that with the blue aluminium grease there, and push it down until a point at which the half moon slider underneath actually contacts with the the cam. Okay, so now reassembly of the cover. This here, don't forget this here is also a sliding bearing, so a bit of oil on that just to keep it nice. Now you can see this is the plate that we prepared earlier. So if you click it like that, it won't come over the lip on the cog here, and you'll have struggle to get it on. So if you click it like that, it pulls this out of the way, and then you can get it on quite easily. So that's what we're going to do now. So there you go, goes on quite easily, and then there are 3 screws that go in. So when you're done with the reassembly, you should see some tight screws like so, and you can give it a quick wipe to get all the oil off it. Right, reassembly of the KP Morritt's handle. Earlier on, reassembly of the KP Morritt's handle. Earlier on, this handle was jammed, so I actually put it in boiling water and unjammed it. So now that does work. Possibly need a little bit of oil in it. Alright, so now we've got a working handle. What we do need to do is to put the winder back, and this is a brass screw, so just be careful not to overthread it or anything. Again, we'll put a little bit of oil on that. This is loose enough that you don't really need oil on it, but it does help to oil the wheels, so to speak. So that's nice and loose, which is good, because that's where you want to be. And then what we're going to do now is I'm going to make this a right hand reel by putting the handle on the left hand side. Which is how that's what you classify as a right hand reel. So there we have a little nut that goes in there and gets screwed down. And a slightly greasy screwdriver. Doesn't matter, it works okay. So if you push that should flip over so that you can store the reel without the handle sticking out, like so. And then if you push it back, it should click back in place. Right, once you're in that position, essentially if you wind the reel in the right direction, it should wind nicely and lightly. And back the other way for setting up the rod. If you click this, you should get a ratchet, and if you go back, it should stop you going back. Okay. So the next thing to do with this reel is to put the spool back. Haven't really done much to the spool. There's a flathead shaft there the spool fits onto, and then you got your Mercedes badge on the front there, which I'm sure it's not. Now this does have its own ratchet on it, so that you can tell when the fish is pulling, and you can adjust that to various settings, right? So if you flip the bail arm over, it should click back nicely, as it does. Okay, so that completes the video of reassembling KP Morritt's Intrepid Regent, which is a very small entry-level fishing reel used for thread line work. It's at the lower quality end of the market. It doesn't really have any proper bearings or anything like that, but it is a good reel and it works very well. And that completes the video, and look out for more videos. I hope you enjoyed watching. This is Avian Fish signing off now.